Hey guys, welcome back to Critical Flick. Today I'll be reviewing Wages of Fear, now streaming on Netflix. So this French film is a remake of the original 1953 film of the same name. We also got a really good remake in the 1970s called Sorcerer, and I have to say right off the top, this one isn't quite as good as those first two films, but that's a pretty high bar to clear. And the basic premise of the story is that you have a group of individuals trying to transport a payload of nitroglycerin across treacherous desert terrain, very similar to the original story with slightly changing the characters and the setting. And the biggest interpersonal conflict in this story is between two brothers. These two brothers are kind of the lead in this mission, and earlier on in the story, very early on in the film, we find out that one brother looped the other into a very dangerous heist where the one brother ends up being captured and sent to prison, and they kind of is that animosity between each other, feeling like they've been betrayed or backstabbed. And there is a pretty solid character arc throughout the film with those two, but it feels like it never fully explores their relationship and really any other relationship between the other characters. And I think that's the thing that holds this film back for being quite as good as those other two. I will say that I think it makes good use of tension, and that's obviously the big hallmark of the original film, and it's kind of the thing that set the framework for big action films moving on from that one. It kind of is seen as a predecessor to our modern big blockbuster action films, and you see those elements. You can see why it's been a tried and true formula, kind of that classic race against time. And there are some good action scenes in this film that use that tension, whether it's trying to get through a minefield or trying to stop bandits that are trying to take them out on high-speed chases through the desert. I do think bringing this film into the modern cinematic landscape will be enjoyable for some people. The big action set pieces, the explosions, which there are no shortage of in this film, as well as kind of the CGI elements that I think for the most part look pretty decent, will be enjoyable enough as kind of a simple action story. But I think obviously when you compare them to these classic films, it just doesn't quite stand up. I do think the performances are solid, particularly between the two brothers and kind of trying to create that emotional connection. It just lacks the depth of those original films. And like I said, a lot of the side characters feel like they're just kind of in there as plot devices. There are some changes to kind of who those characters are compared to the original film, but I do think that it just could have dove a little bit deeper into more of a meaningful story, more of an impact. And by the end, when you get to the final resolution, it feels like it falls just a little bit flat. There are some kind of ridiculous and nonsensical things that happen in this film. I'm more than willing to kind of just ignore those things, as we've seen it so many times in modern blockbusters. But I would have loved to see this film take the elements that made the original special and bring it into the modern landscape without it feeling like it's kind of trying to fit that kind of basic bare bones narrative into a conventional modern action film. That's what it felt very much to me. I do think that it accomplished a lot that it set out to do, but I can't help but feel there could have been just so much more. It's a perfectly average action film, and I think if you set it apart from the originals, it can be quite enjoyable. But if you do compare it to the original or the remake, it is going to fall just a little bit flat. And if you have watched the original film or Sorcerer, I would love to hear what you think. And if you haven't seen those films, I'd love to see how you feel about it, because I do think that could create quite a divide in how people experience this film. So again, thanks for watching. Remember to like and subscribe, and see you guys next time.